I sent cruel anonymous emails to a classmate when I was in middle school. When I was in middle school I was this outcast kid. I didn't exactly get bullied, but I didn't have any friends either. There was one girl in my class who I can now admit I was jealous of. She seemed to have everything I wanted. She was also a bit of a gossip, and she fake was one of the reasons I couldn't make friends. She was one of those gossipy types, and she spread a lot of gossip about how I was lesbian, half true, and a creep. Not true as far as I know. She would also make fun of me wearing my sister's cast-offs instead of new brand clothes. This all is no excuse for what I did, but I do want to explain how I got to that point. I was jealous, I was lonely, and most of all I was angry at her. Instead of doing what I should have done, like tell my parents or teachers, I took things into my own hands. I wanted to make her feel the way she made me feel all the time. I made an anonymous email account and sent her an email through it. I don't remember what I wrote exactly, but effectively it was just a list of insults. Calling her fat, not true, a slut. She was allowed to wear these really short shorts that even the teachers disapproved of. I wasn't creative, etc. After I sent it, I anxiously waited to see how she'd react. She was laughing about it with her friends, which didn't exactly make me less mad. Honestly, I admire her for it now. But back then I waited a few days to send a second email. Crueler than the first, longer, and I think I remember actually writing some threatening stuff. I sent it in the school lunch break, and afterwards I noticed she was really pale and almost crying. I immediately felt like the worst person in the world. I ended up consoling her and encouraging her to tell the teacher about the email. That's probably the only reason she never suspected me. A few months later I finally got around to deleting the email address, and I discovered the school had sent a warning that I should report myself, and otherwise they would hack the email and find out anyway. One of those bullshit threats, which I recognized as bullshit, because I hadn't gotten in trouble during those months in between where I didn't check my email on that address. I got away with it, but even now it's one of the worst moments of my life. I'm so ashamed when I think back on it. She maybe deserved something, but she didn't deserve what I did. It was so cowardly and cruel. I hate to think that I'm capable of things like that, but apparently I am. Or at least I was. I will never tell her. Even if I see her again, it would just dredge up old wounds. But at least I can post it here to get it off my chest. I was dishonest to my client and made them pay me for what I could have prevented. I have my own business as a printer. I have fancy printing machines, and usually my clients email me artwork and all I have to do is print it and make sure I deliver on time. The COVID situation has been tough, and I could use extra cash. One of my clients emailed me some artwork, and before I printed it, I noticed there was a mistake made on it. His graphics designer had forgotten to add important info on the design. I provided a sample, well knowing that there was an omission, equivalent to a typo, but the client still went ahead and approved the sample before I could go into batch production. Instead of me giving him the heads up, I went ahead and printed it out, knowing very well that he would eventually see the omission made and ask for a reprint, which obviously means more money for me, since it wasn't my fault that his designer fucked up. Well, this was 2 days ago and today he just called me and sent edits to his design and said his designer fucked up. It's a situation I could have easily prevented and uncharacteristic of me because I knew it would result into another order which meant more money for me. I'll let it happen. I thought I would feel like shit, but the prospect of more money for me has made me feel rather good instead. My actual confession is not that I didn't let my client know of the error, but rather that I don't feel as bad as I should. I messed with my sister's birth control. I have posted this on other subreddits and have been attacked for being an evil person. I do feel some guilt about it and know my sister would be weirded out if I told her. It worked out okay, but I wonder how I would have felt if it didn't. Here is what happened. I helped my kid sister, she was 23, just started grad school, become a mom, when she really wanted to get pregnant, but felt guilty about the timing being impractical. She had just gotten married that year and was still in school, but getting married gave her a bad case of baby fever. She told me she hated using condoms during her fertile days. She was using a fertility monitor and would fantasize about the condom breaking to help her stay in the mood when they had sex. I asked her if she'd ever thought about just lying to him and telling him she's safe so she could enjoy her fantasy for real. She said it was really tempting, but she'd feel guilty the whole time and then worry about what if she got pregnant for real. Here's what I did. A few months after they were married, I was staying with them overnight at their apartment, and on an impulse I decided to be nosy and check her fertility monitor. I had bought it for her as a shower gift, and it was just like mine. When I saw it was flashing red, predicting ovulation, I couldn't resist the chance. I switched hers with mine, which was safely green, meaning no protection needed for sex, and I made sure to empty their box of condoms in the trash just in case. I made sure they had a lot to drink that night, and her husband insisted on having green night sex with her when he saw my device showing green on her nightstand. She knew something had to be wrong, because even drunk she knew where she was in her cycle. I could hear her through the wall protesting a little. They were both pretty loud, and it was a tiny apartment. At first it was honey, we can't, not without a condom, and she tried to tell him the monitor was wrong. Then the temptation got the better of her. Soon the whole apartment was filled with the sounds of my sister very enthusiastically finally getting to enjoy her fantasy of no condom when I'm ovulating sex. The next morning they had another go at it, and she was glowing and all smiles at breakfast. When I switched the monitors back, I noticed she hadn't even taken her temperature that morning. I'm sure it's because she didn't want to risk that green light changing colors until she got one more chance to enjoy the opportunity. Mother Nature did the rest. It worked out great in the end. She was pretty worried about money and school at first when the reality hit her that she was actually pregnant, but she gave birth a little more than a year after they got married, and then after their oops they decided to go ahead and try for their second, since she was taking time off from school anyway. I'd love to tell her how I was her fairy godmother who sprinkled her with baby dust, but don't want to damage our relationship. She's really happy, and like I said their second was planned, but I know she would have waited a few years to finish school otherwise. Edit. In answer to your questions, I'm a girl, not a guy. I did this not because I'm mean, but because I had a bad case of baby fever too, and had to wait. I still am. And I really wanted her to just be able to have the chance to forget about being responsible for once and give in to what she wanted. I figured it wasn't really all that likely she'd get pregnant from just once. There's only about a 25% chance, even if you time it perfectly, and even then the chances of an early miscarriage are really high. And no, she hasn't gone back to school. She had a grad fellowship, but gave it up, which is part of why they decided to have their second baby. I've stolen over 10k in cash at my former job, and was never caught. Throwaway account. I used to work at the movie theaters as a manager about 9 years ago. This theater was super popular, brand new everything at the time, a bar, amazing sound and seating. Every time a new movie would come out it would be stupid busy. Him talking like Twilight, Iron Man, The Hangover, etc. Pretty good movies. This was before apps for theaters started being popular, and we did have kiosk for people to pay on card only, but 90% of the time they would up on the ticket counter. I was in charge of closing out the registers at night. At first I was honest, I would count out the draws, figure out what was earned, see if it was short or not, and even out the draw back to the start of the day. Usually it was set up for $250. After a while I noticed there was no security cameras in the ticket counter and there would be no way of seeing what was happening unless you were inside the booth. So I got curious. One night while I was closing up I pocketed $20 and wrote up off nothing. So the following week I did it again, nothing again, and then I waiting on super busy movie nights when we would use 4 of the registers in the booth, and at closing I would take 40 from each and even the draw back to $250. Some busy nights I would walk out with about $250 to $300, and I was getting away with it. No one ever looked into the fact I was doing this. So I kept at it for 5 to 6 months. I'm not sure how much I really took, but I can with confidence say it was over 10k, because I used it to put a down payment on a car. I ended up quitting the job due to moving out of the state, and that was that. I was never caught. So basically, they should have really invested in cameras in the ticket counter area lol. Doctor, I stole over 10k at a movie theater from registers as a manager and was never caught. My friend and I pulled an Ed and Eddy scam in our youth to get ice cream from the local sub shop. I still feel guilty to this day because I truly wanted to do some good. Mayo across the street from my mom's house was an apartment complex that looked like an old Motel 6 to 8 units in one long strip. They would leave their garbage bags outside. Granted, they didn't have a dumpster, so every day seagulls or raccoons would tear the shit out of their trash and it would always end up in our yard. My mom was furious. I thought it would be a great idea to raise money to give to the landlord of that place so they can get their own dumpster. I guess we could have complained. I didn't know how that worked as a kid, and by the looks of the people who lived there I assumed they couldn't afford a dumpster. Not being mean, we also came from dirt poor and recognized their living means. Innocent at best, and I wanted to help. My friend was over. We stole our neighbor's cart from their backyard that they stole from a grocery store and started picking up trash alongside people's homes. Told them our plan and raised about $25. My friend told me we should just stop and get ice cream instead. I did not appreciate lying as a kid, but the sub shop's ice cream was the best in town. It won. This caused her to want to do more scams, you know, like in Ed and Eddy. I couldn't do it. Lying would get me in serious trouble at home, so I let her do the lying in whatever scam she wanted to pull, and I reaped in the rewards of free ice cream at her. Good times. Good times.